Good evening, everyone. I call the Marlington Local School District Board of Education regular meeting to order on April 1st, 2021 at 7:00 p.m. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all. The reading of the mission statement will be by Dr. Mason.
In collaboration with staff, community, parents, and students, the Marlington Local School District will develop lifelong learners who understand and apply knowledge and demonstrate excellence in pursuing the highest standards with effective intervention to challenge every student.
Thank you. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. Dr. Main, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Gabrick?
Here.
Mr. Hagan?
Here.
Mrs. Humphries?
Here.
Dr. Mason?
Here.
Mrs. Stevens?
here.
Meeting agenda, is there a motion to adopt the Marlington Local Board of Education agenda for the meeting April 1st, 2021?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any additions or corrections? Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick?
Yes.
Mr. Hagan?
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries?
Yes.
Dr. Mason?
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens?
Yes.
Approved 5-0.
Public participation. Dr. Main, were any documents received from the public participation section of tonight's meeting?
No documents were received.
Thank you. Business advisory update. I attended the Business Advisory Council on March 23rd, and we heard an update from Joe Chaddock, superintendent of the ESC. He went over the status of all of Stark County K-12 schools and commended everyone for doing a great job through the COVID situation. And he explained that they're receiving ASTRA money, that they're going to be developing some enrichment summer opportunities. And we also heard an update from Lori Moline from Mentor Stark. And we heard a presentation from Darla Brown from the Karcher Group, which is a full service marketing agency. Special presentations, Dr. Schruffler.
Okay, good evening, everybody. We have some students of the month here for you tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to our IT person, Ben, and he'll roll with those.
Good evening, Mr. Spondile here from Marlington High School, and tonight we're proud to present our two Elks Teens of the Month for the month of March. Our first student of the month is Callie Swisher. Callie is the daughter of Dan Swisher and Trisha Barker. Callie is a 4-year letter winner in soccer, a 4-year letter winner in track and field. She's part of our Rocks, Interact, Link Crew, and Character Counts clubs. She's a Duke Pound leader, and she volunteers throughout the community at various church events. She loves coming to school functions and helping families in need. Callie works at Giant Eagle, working about 20 hours a week, and she also babysits. She loves to be with her friends and family. Her future plans are to attend the University of Akron to continue her soccer career and major in speech pathology and audiology. Congratulations, Callie. Our next student of the month is Nathan Hottinger. Nathan is the son of Thomas and Diana Hottinger. He's a 3-time letterman in varsity soccer and was a captain this past season. He's a 1-year letter winner for cross country, and he volunteers for food banks in the Canton area with his grandparents. Our next student of the month is Nexus. Nexus is the son of Thomas and Diana Hottinger. He's a 3-time letterman in varsity soccer and was a captain this past season. He's a 1-year letter winner for cross country, and he volunteers for food banks in the Canton area with his grandparents. Nathan loves technology. He plans on going to college for computer science, but is still undecided where he wants to attend. Congratulations, Nathan.
Good evening and welcome to Beach Day here at Marlington Middle School. Today with me is Natalie Rice, one of our students of the month for April. Natalie is an 8th grader. Natalie is the daughter of Jennifer and John Rice. Her favorite classes are reading and horticulture. Natalie is a member of the Portage County Unleashed 4-H Club and has been involved in 4-H for over 5 years. She's also a member of our Power of the Pen team, and she placed 12th out of all 8th graders at the Mount Union competition. In her free time, Natalie enjoys drawing and talking with her friends. Here's what her teachers had to say about Natalie. Natalie is a diligent worker and is willing to help anyone who needs it. She also has a great sense of humor, as she sent me the dog ate my homework excuse in Schoology. He only got the corner, but cute enough to pass along. And of course, it didn't stop her from completing her work. Another teacher said Natalie is a hardworking, intelligent student who is constantly trying to be the best she can be. She always tries to help others better understand subjects and problems whenever she can. Natalie also has a great personality and a sense of humor when carrying on a conversation. Another teacher said she's very funny and friendly to talk with, has a great personality, and gets along extremely well with her peers. We're very proud of Natalie, and we wish her best of luck this year and next year at the high school. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Beach Day at the middle school. Next up is 8th grader Jacoby Souls. Jacoby is the grandson of Elizabeth Harley. His favorite classes are math and science. In his free time, he enjoys gaming online with friends, building stuff at home like a robot, or working with drones. Since returning from DDA, Jacoby was dedicated from day one. We'll never forget watching him to go to turn in a paper and then turn around and say, oh wait, I forgot to do the bonus. He's willing to try anything, even if it's challenging. He embraces what it means to be a problem solver. It's a joy to watch him work. He isn't afraid to ask questions or participate in discussions. He also ends every class with "Have a nice day." In addition, Jacoby's classmates love him. They walk right up to him every morning to say hello and see what he has to say. Another teacher says Jacoby is a great student. He is very hardworking, always looking to improve himself. He's inquisitive, asking questions that drive conversation and the learning process. He has a great sense of humor and is always fun to have a deep conversation with him. Another teacher says he's extremely funny, friendly, has a great personality, and gets along very well with his peers. And lastly, Jacoby is talented, and he goes into class with a genuine desire to learn. Jacoby's ability to work with others, his intelligent and great questions make those around him better students. Congratulations, Jacoby, and best of luck.
I'm Mrs. Kellums from Lexington Elementary, and today we are honoring Mason Hively for our April Kiwanis Student of the Month. Mason was chosen because his smiling face and positive outlook are greatly appreciated each morning when he arrives to class. We can count on him each Monday to lift our spirits. He's also a very kind and thoughtful student who puts effort into all of his schoolwork. Mason, keep doing your best and being your wonderful self. Congratulations. Thank you. You're welcome.
Hello, Marlington community. My name is Kitty Mort. I'm the principal at Marlboro Elementary, and I'm here to honor our Kiwanis Student of the Month for April, Miss Amber McCarty. A little bit about Amber from her teachers. Amber was chosen because she is a wonderful, well-rounded student who cares greatly about her school, her education, and all the people around her. She has an awesome attitude that is very positive and contagious, which brings out the positivity in her friends and classmates. This greatly enhances all her friendships with 5th grade peers and her relationships with staff members. Finally, Amber continuously emulates Duke Pride by successfully modeling each and every part of our Duke Pride expectations for all of our younger students. She leads by example during any and every opportunity within our school day throughout the building. Great job, Amber. A little more about her. Amber's favorite subject is science, and her family includes 2 dogs, 1 kitten, and 1 bunny. and her parents and her love to go on bike rides. For her future, she wants to be a teacher, and she wants to visit Hawaii. She likes to ride horses, and she takes riding lessons. And at this time, I'm going to present Ember with her certificate.
Hello, I'm Gary Tosh, principal at Washington Elementary, and I'm standing with Mason Miller, who is our April's Kiwanis Student of the Month. And I wanted to read something that his teachers wrote about him. It says, Mason Miller was selected as the Kiwanis Student of the Month because of his incredible work ethic, his kindness and grace towards others, and his impressive academic achievements. Mason is a student that can always be counted on to know the expectations and give his best effort to meet them. He adds fun and laughter to our mornings and is bound to be a member of the CIA someday. So Mason, congratulations on being Kiwanis Student of the Month.
Thank you very much.
Okay, congratulations to all of our students.
Yes, congratulations to all of them. Old business, financial and construction update, Dr. Mike.
Okay, good evening again, everybody. Maybe we'll start with the quick construction update. Right now is a tiny little bit of quiet time for us. The lease purchase is in place. Dr. Main is working with the bank and with PlugSmart, and we're taking care of the initial details of getting that rolling. And then we are, PlugSmart is making sure that all the contractors are in place, that we know exactly when we're going to start projects and what phase. There are some things that we will actually be able to start this month. I'm excited to hear about that. That the workers would come in at 4 o'clock or 3:30 after all the kids are gone, and they can do some of the things to get a head start on the project. So we're rolling. I don't anticipate any issues right now or any problems. And are there any questions about the construction?
Have the contractors been chosen at this point, Dr. Mike?
I believe they've all been chosen. I believe we have everybody returning to us that helped at Marlboro. But as soon as I have all of that solidified, I can make sure I get you a list of those. And
Okay, thank you very much.
you're welcome. I also promised you that each meeting we'd have a kind of a financial update and a little bit of a, where are we going with the levy process? So I mentioned, we talked to you a lot the last board meeting, and I know that community members have asked, some of you have asked me about possible places where we could save some money or where we could cut some things for next year. And remember, last month I cautioned everybody, the district has made a lot of cuts over the last few years. We haven't had new money in 20 years, almost 20 years. So a lot of anything of what we might do is going to probably cut pretty severely. It's hard to say specifically what we can do because we don't know what dominoes will fall, who might retire, although those details will probably become known pretty rapidly. I believe that I can make a commitment to you to reduce our staff by 4 or 5 teachers. And I believe that we can do this by what we call attrition. Someone leaves or retires, we can move someone around. We are looking very closely again at our career tech programs. I believe that we could probably cut or combine one of those or combine two together. I think we've pretty much figured out that we can, through a retirement, we can eliminate the high school library aide. The high school library has morphed into a technology center, as you know, and we have a technology person there. And then we are doing, Dr. Main and Leslie Pierce and I are doing a pretty extensive audit of our supplementals. So what that means, how many students do we have in a sport? How many coaches do we have? Is it proportional? Is it proportional to what other districts around us have in the way of coaching staff, or if it might be an extracurricular, what we have there? We've looked pretty closely at busing. It's kind of difficult to eliminate bus routes with a district our size. There may be one or two that we could adjust. These cuts or these opportunities that I'm talking to you about, I'm estimating they'd probably cut about $450,000 off the budget. I wanted to mention, I don't want you to forget. Oh, before I move forward, I forgot something. We are also doing an extensive look at any overtime that happens in the district. Now, this year, overtime became really necessary in our custodial department. We have had as you know, some custodians leave us. We've had some new custodians, and there have been times when our custodians had to quarantine. Well, in COVID times, that means that you have to get somebody to clean, whether you have a sub or not. So we have had quite a bit of overtime there, but rightfully so. And that overtime will be able to use COVID relief funds to go back and pay for that overtime. But we're taking a serious look at any overtime we might have. Transportation department, custodial department, those are the two places where we would normally see overtime. Certified staff does not get overtime or would not be eligible for overtime. So those are some things that I believe we can adjust to help our budget. We also, we have some things that we need to attend to. We have some curriculum issues that we're going to have to use a little bit of funding. I believe that we'll be able to use some COVID relief funds for a bit of those. That we have some ongoing just in case repairs to our buildings in case that something happens. So we have to consider those things. Right now our high school is under what the state calls watch. So I believe we need to give our high school a little bit of support to make sure they come out of that watch and that our students are prepared for graduation and meet the requirements. The requirements for graduation have gotten stricter over the last few years, and we have to make sure that we support our students. So any questions about that piece so far?
You had mentioned you're going to look at the supplemental contracts. Does that also include extended days? Is that also considered like a supplemental contract?
So we can look at those. Some extended days are part of the contract, part of the teacher contract. So those we don't have a lot of wiggle room on those. Anything else?
Your anticipation is the 450,000 would be starting this coming fiscal year.
Starting in the fall. Yeah,
okay,
starting in the fall for the next school year that would begin fall of 2020. Okay. And then the last part of my update, I want to keep the discussion moving in regard to a levy on the ballot. So let me just give you, beginning with the end in mind, if we are on the ballot in November, if you back up all the requirements by our board meeting on June 15th, the board would have to make an initial resolution to go on the ballot. Let me explain that a little bit so that everybody understands or is refreshed. So you have to file for your motion for a levy with the Board of Elections, Patty and I believe 90 days before. And then before you can do that, the board has to, at 2 regular board meetings, and Patty, correct me if I'm wrong, it takes 2 regular board meetings to affirm that we are going to do that levy. So that that really pretty much takes us to June 15th. So we have a roughly 2.5 months to make a decision on, what type of levy, how much is this levy. We brought you some statistics about millage. If we did an emergency levy, what does 6 mills bring in? What does 7 mills bring in? We're just about ready to talk to you more extensively that next board meeting about an income tax. We do know the income tax would be less than 1%. So that's really good. And we would want to make sure that the community understands what it means to have an earned income tax. Patty and I have to tie up some loose ends before we talk to you about that one, but it's also a possibility. So, Ryan, our analysis from Forecast 4 said we need a levy that's going to translate into roughly $3 million a year. And so that's how we're figuring, the suggested amount of mills or the suggested percentage of an earned income tax. The other piece of that, it's probably time to start talking about a levy committee. And in talking with some folks at the district, I think you haven't had a new money levy in so long. We need a committee for that. We need a fresh committee for that. We need people to step up that are going to be positive chair people, so on and so forth, somebody to be the treasurer. So it's time to start thinking about that as well. We talked today a little bit more about, I've been through a lot of school levies, so it's kind of a step-by-step process. So what we need to do, how we do that, how we get information out. I think one of our biggest challenges is going to be not being able to have big community meetings. So that means we're going to have a lot of small community meetings, and that means we're going to need positive people to help with that so that we can answer questions and make sure that people understand. So I know I threw a lot at you, but that's kind of where we are with this discussion.
And Dr. Mike, we're still limited to 10 people then on those community meetings as well?
So here's what I asked, and I know it sounds really strange, but the best I can figure or best I've heard is that yes, that technically we are only supposed to have 10 people in a room at a time right now. Now, I did hear about a week and a half ago that the governor was talking about making that 25, but he wanted to wait and see, in the next couple of weeks where we go with the vaccine.
Okay, thank you.
And that's a good question, Mr. Hagan. And I did want to point out, I talked to Mrs. Gabrick about this a little bit too. So we know that there are organizations that are meeting with more than 10 people, but that doesn't mean it falls under the law. So we want to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. There's a lot of pluses to having small community meetings when we talk about levies. So whatever we need to do, we'll do.
Dr. Mike, I'm not sure that we had a clear answer on this. Did you figure out what 1 mill is worth in Marlington?
Well, you mean what does 1 mill bring in?
Yes.
Patty, do you have that with you? Oh, you got to unmute.
I'm looking for that.
Okay.
And I guess while she's looking on that, this is probably a question for Patty as well, but I was just wondering if we could go over the ASTRA money for round 2, what that's being used for, how that's going to impact our 5-year forecast, as well as the round 3 that is being currently, I think, announced now. At least it was in the Alliance review a couple of days ago. where the round 3 was announced at being probably more than double the amount that was received in December. So Patty, once you answer the question there, if you could go over like the ESSER money and how that's going to impact our forecast.
Okay, great. The ESSER funds, we had an ESSER 1, we now have an ESSER 2, and as I believe you just mentioned, we believe that we're hearing things that we're going to have the third round. That is a federally funded grant. So we will use those dollars for COVID-related expenses, as well as we're looking at loss in revenue. For example, the state funding piece. We're looking at how we can use those dollars to replace what has been lost in funding due to those COVID-related expenses and revenue.
Could you clarify how much the round 2 for ESSER money, how much was that one?
That was over 1.7 million.
And will that be impacted on our 5-year forecast that we see in May as reduced expenses, or how would that be reflected?
Correct. Since it's a federal fund, our forecast is based upon our general fund. This is a different fund. However, it will be reflected as a reduction in some of our expenditures that you will see that we normally cover using our general fund. So it's in the end, it will be reflected, but not directly.
And then have you been told how much round 3 is, or do you have an estimate that you've received as far as round 3?
I have only heard rumors. Dr. Mike, unless you have heard something absolute, I have not heard exact numbers.
No, I have not heard any numbers.
And with that, I mean, have you heard that it is going to be, we'll have a longer period of time to spend it with a broader range and not maybe specific, not as specific as round 1 and 2, that would give us more leeway for helping with our overall budget? Or you haven't heard any of this yet?
I have not heard any of those about the third round. However, I do know that the second round of ESSER funds was a little more lenient, and we can go back to that beginning date in March through 2022.
Now, I realize this is one-time money, but they look to be large sums. Is that going to help us in a positive way as we move forward to talking about a levy, so that we can lessen the burden on the taxpayers? Or how do you anticipate, what's your vision of that?
We've actually been in the planning stages. We're looking at all aspects, and of course we do want to use that money for any general expense that we incurred due to those revenue losses. So I would look forward to spending those in line with that, as well as some of the expenditures. They have, the guidelines also speak of summer. So a lot of our summer planning right now, we're looking at those ESSER funds. Dr. Mike, did you want to add anything to that?
I do. So one piece, we will, and you'll find all of the districts around us are doing this. We are going to offer some summer programs that otherwise we would not have been able to offer. So it will give students, we will definitely target students, then they will be invited to the program. And we're hoping to make it more like a, for lack of a better word, camp type program where you get academics, you get some exercise, we'll feed the kids, and that will not take a huge chunk of our ESSER funds. And hopefully that will get kids, any kids that were a little bit behind with what happened with COVID. We will pay teachers. Hopefully our teachers will take those jobs, and we will pay them to be the teachers for the program. So we were planning a pretty hefty summer. And Patty, just so you know, I did email the board the link to our plan. And I know it's kind of extensive and kind of a lot of education language, but it just means we're going to provide programs over the summer for our kids, and we'll pay our teachers. And that'll just be a small chunk of the ESSER funds. There will be opportunity also. The ESSER funds include opportunities for us to sometimes you need people to help pull out of situations. So like our high school in watch, or preparing to make sure they're not in watch in the future. So are there any places at the middle school where we have to make some changes? And those jobs that have ESSER funds would obviously be temporary. They're tied to a grant. And that's not unusual. We've had that in education in the past. So I think the funds will positively impact us. The problem is there are so many stipulations with these funds that it's going to take a lot of discussion and question asking, and, you know, how can we use this? What are we allowed to use this for? Because you can't just take the money and kind of dump it in the general fund. You can't do that. So we'll do the best we can to maximize our dollars.
And just a takeaway would be that in the end, we are looking to reduce some of those expenditures in general fund. Like Dr. Mike said, we're in the planning process and getting it approved. And once it's approved, we'll be able to share some more details. But right now, we need to stay pretty general so that we can ensure that everything that we want to do is allowable and accepted, and our plan is approved. And like I said, we'll share those details once it's approved.
Patty, were you able to determine or find your notes on the millage for Marlington?
We have broken down a 7 mil levy would bring in 3.2. Now, we do need to make the distinction that the operating piece would be 2.7, and then there's a piece that would go into our 070 out of that.
And would you just explain what the 070 is, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, the 070 is our pipeline revenue that we're putting into capital improvements and upgrades within our elementary buildings at this time. And that millage, there's a piece of that which would be that pipeline revenue that would be pulled out. So it's about 3.2 total, and then it would be 2.7 would go into the general fund. And then, of course, because it is in the appeal process, it's not going to all add up, because there's only 182 at this point, because we have that 38% appealed value rather than the whole amount.
Okay, so say we go for this 3.2, you're factoring the pipeline revenue in that at the 38%, is that correct?
It would be on assessed value. So the 3.2 is on assessed value.
Not what they're paying, what they're supposed to be paying?
Correct.
Is that what, oh, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So we, the assessed value, we pretty much collect our assessed value taxes. So that's about 2.7. However, an additional amount is from that pipeline revenue. And at this point, that 38% would be 182,000.
Just what I've been hearing since Dr. Mike started speaking about the 7 mil levy, and I think the forecast 5 gentleman was speaking about that as well. That seems like a very high levy. I think that if we can factor in, the reductions that you have suggested, and you're potentially looking at a few more, if we could get this more in line with a reasonable figure so that it would be something that the community would support. We look at surrounding districts that go for a high number, and then they have to make more serious cuts because their levy fails, and then they have to keep cutting the number down to a place where the community would support it. I think we should offer a reasonable levy for our operating costs. And have we given any thought to splitting the levy, where part of it would be permanent improvement, part of it would be for operating, so that we could continue to meet our facility needs for all of our buildings and repairs that need done? Is that something that we would consider, or what's your thought on that?
I guess I'd have to give that some thought. We need operating money. That's where we're coming to the state saying you're getting close to a fiscal issue. We've been using pipeline money for improvements. So I hadn't thought about that. I think the concern is we need operating money. And if we can make the levy less, as long as people understand that means less services to kids, larger class sizes, less programs at the high school, but we can do that. It depends what, the community is willing to do.
I think it's important not to forget that we are in a diminished payment from the pipeline money, and that is being under review right now. And is it not possible that we might be receiving additional money in back pay from that once that's settled?
I wouldn't count on that. I don't know. I just would not count on that. I've been around the block too long. I just wouldn't count on that. I know how government works, and but I don't know. I guess anything's possible. But I don't think the next even hearing is till May of 2022. So we're talking years before we would have any adjustment on the pipeline money.
So you're saying that the November hearing has been moved to May, is that correct?
I believe so. I believe that's what I heard. I don't know, Patty, if you've heard that as well.
I also heard that.
The hearing is now May 22, is that what you said?
2022.
And Patty, could you tell us how much is in our Nexus project fund at the moment, capital projects fund?
Improvement?
I don't have that figure right now, but I can get that for you.
But that is, that will be what's used then to make our first payment on the elementary repairs. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
We will board approve that transfer, and then we will, what's left in there from our, from the elementary repairs, that's what was left, and I can't give you an exact number. I'll have to look that up.
Patty, if you could you get the board the the balance of that fund, as well as maybe a schedule of the estimated future deposits that we're going to receive, as well as the encumbrances, just to give us an idea how that's going to trend?
I can do that, yes.
Okay, thank you. And I also like to point out, I agree with Carolyn on the idea of maybe looking at an option of levy of a lesser amount. I know it kind of puts some pressure on the district, but just what's happened in districts all around us, you ask amount, they're not getting passed, the levy is failing, they're forced to make even more cuts, whereas if we did, maybe a step to figure out probability, what the public would support as far as what number they feel comfortable with, at least, even though it's not that full, we would have money that we would be able to use towards operations versus be in a really tight spot and asking for, we'd end up less if our
Or once again, maybe consider not using money on space that is not needed. We could not fix Washington Elementary because we don't need the space.
So we should put all the building right now with COVID. Are you serious?
Rather than continue to spend money in a way that a portion of a community, whether you want to say it's a large portion or not, doesn't want to spend it on and thinks is a waste of money because we only have 600 and some elementary kids between 3 buildings. Why don't we just not spend that money? That would be a good use of resources, to not spend it on things we don't need.
Have you looked at Marlington cases compared to schools around us? You might want to give that a look.
What are you talking about?
Our confirmed COVID cases with our Marlington students versus districts around us.
Okay.
Compare.
Josh, we don't need the space. And this situation isn't going to go on forever. And we've been virtual learning anyway. That makes no sense. The bottom line is, if you're spending money on things that don't need to be spent, then the community is not going to be comfortable and not going to agree to give you more money. That's just the bottom line.
But the parents are going to, we put all the kids into one building?
If it's a bad enough situation as it's been, and it's been virtual learning, they're not going to be in the buildings anyway.
Okay.
Well,
That's a nice distraction. That's a nice distraction, but that's not the truth.
It's
now,
right now, it's reality. It's not a distraction. It's reality. It's what
okay, so you want to spend millions on something that is a temporary situation, is what you're saying. And then you're saying the community support that.
Did you get
That's not what I'm hearing.
That our enrollment actually went up from last year?
By what, 30?
it's still not a temporary situation, and we need to be equal. We can't just fix 2 elementaries and not fix all 3. We've already made the plans to do so. We've already agreed as a board with the board majority. And that's board not majority. Fair. I understand that, but that's just how it would be anyways. Even I do believe you were on part of the board majority that wanted the consolidated elementary school for the brand new elementary school, and we would have been even worse shape than what we are now. And we can't just pick one school or the other and decide.
I keep looking backwards and divert attention to this, what we could do right now.
And
you could
are doing
stop this right now, and you're choosing not to. So, and now go out and try to convince the community you're doing good things with the money.
I think we can't help it that the previous boards from years on, even when I was attending Marlington and Josh was attending Marlington, did not make the repairs that were necessary for those elementary schools. It is not fair to have 3 elementary schools and not have all 3 have those repairs that are needed. It's been time and time again that those repairs have needed to be done.
So you'll be heading up that levy committee, Danielle? You'll be heading up the levy committee?
I would love to head up that levy committee, but
awesome.
Right now I'm a little busy with everything else.
Oh.
Are you gonna head up? Did you head up the levy committee for the consolidated elementary school that you were in support of?
I was very much a part of it. Yes, I was.
Okay, I didn't say that I wouldn't be a part of it, but as of right now, I am gonna do my best to do what needs done.
Head those committees. Dr. Mike, do you know if we're allowed to do that? Is that conflict?
Dr. Mike, you're on mute.
I've seen board members had those, but I'll be honest with you, I would really like to see community members chair those committees. And not to say, Danielle or Karen, that we don't want your active support. This is a community issue. And the more community we get involved, the more they learn. And then they tell their friends and family, and the more they learn. That's just my thought.
Thank you, Dr. Mike. I completely agree with that thought. That's a very great idea.
One quick thing, you are not allowed to be the treasurer. No one on the board, superintendent or treasurer, would be permitted to be the levy treasurer, just so you know that.
I think it's important to remember that going the process of repairing our elementaries is millions of dollars cheaper than what it was going to cost to build the consolidated elementary. We were not able to get the community support for any of the new schools. So this was the option we had. The community is very much in favor of fixing up our schools. And I think if you've been in Marlboro, you know, it's a great building. It looks great. And based on what the previous plan was, Marlboro wasn't going to be closed. The plan was to put over $500,000 just inside without fixing it up and try to convert it into some sort of career tech facility. So we were going to continue to have the 3 buildings. Dr. Mike, you had mentioned about you were going to start putting together some fact sheets with to get the true information out and perhaps get it on the website. Is that something that you can talk about a little bit, and when the community might start to see this information materialize?
Yes. So I'm working with the impact group to get some, you know, talk to them since they have a lot of experience with this as well. What should we be putting out now? What kinds of information should we be putting out now? And some of it's going to be combining. We've talked about a lot of these things,
right?
Just putting them in a fact sheet that people can read and understand. And if they're like me, I'm a visual person. I like to see it written in front of me, not just talked about. So we can start getting those out soon.
And then that would be on the Marlington website.
They would be.
The marlingtonlocal.org, which was where people would go to get the actual facts. Or as you, I mean, you have offered this numerous times that you accept phone calls from the community to answer questions if they have any questions and to clarify anything that is confusing or they would have a question on.
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate you doing that. That's very beneficial.
Scott, do you have some?
Yes, this I think this levy is critical because I keep hearing there's overwhelming support for fixing up the 3 elementary schools. There's overwhelming support for we know there's support, not support for building new schools. That's the one thing we've had a vote on in this community. So the chance for the community to speak and say, we support what's going on, we are willing to pay, because as I remember Dr. Mike talking about in his interview way back when, he was in a school district which they were willing to pay the extra money to have the extra schools. I don't remember where you were at that time, Mike, but I remember you saying that. And this is it. This is where you hear from the community, just to say, we know they won't support building new schools. We don't know that a majority of the community supports spending money to fix up the schools as we have them. I mean, we have to look at real numbers. Real numbers are, we were at 4,000 students in the 70s. We were at 3,000 students in 2000. We're at 1,900 students today. We were over 800 students in the high school as recently as 4 years ago. We're less than 600 in the high school. We had more than 500 kids in Lexington in 2000. We have 650 kids in the 3 elementary schools today. I think it's great if the community will support it, to have class sizes of 12, 15, 18. I think that's super, but the community needs to realize that costs money, because when we lose that amount of kids, we lose funding that goes along with that. And we have to realize that has to be made up somewhere. Now, if we would, and this is talk about consolidating schools, but I'm sure Dr. Mike has looked at this. If we would put grade levels all in the same building, we probably could save 5 to 10 positions in our elementary schools. And I looked at those numbers and I put together something that shows that's quite a bit in there. So, but that's just putting all the first graders in the same building. So you don't have classes of 12 and 13 in one school, 24, 25 in another school. And I think parents who've been around Marlington schools know that 24, 25, 6 in the elementary school is not unusual and hasn't been in the past. That's been class sizes, kind of normal class sizes as we've come through. So I think it's critical. I think it's critical that it's a real number, that we're not just stopping it with a little bit, but real, because we can't count on the state to fund, because they've had 40, 50 years to fund schools correctly and they haven't done it. And, we have to be willing to say, okay, if we go for a little bit now, we're going to have to go back in a couple years with the same thing. And I think there'll be a point where people are tired of hearing that. So we need to get and figure out what is the issue with this.
I'd just like to point out that this levy is not because we open Marlboro. And I allude to the fact that the reason we're asking for more money is because Marlboro was reopened is extremely ingenuous, and we need to separate the amounts and the facts from what we're asking and how much Marlboro actually cost to reopen. To allude to this levy and line it up with reopening Marlboro to try to get people to be against the levy is actually counterintuitive for a board member to do.
This is about having too much space for the amount of students we have, Josh. Those are real numbers.
So you're
3,000 to 2,000 are real numbers. And there's real money associated with that. Even the 100 kids we've lost in the last 2 years. 100 kids, Patty, that's $6,000 a kid. Correct? Is that what we get state funding? That's $600,000.
Correct.
So that's real. I can't, it is what it is. And if anybody had a business and lost half of their business, they wouldn't keep the same amount of shops for whatever running. But I do think, if the community says this is what we want, then this is what we want. But if transparency is saying, here are all the options, not just the ones I support.
Transparency also includes the fact that we're asking for more money is because we've had expenditures rising for like ever, and we haven't had additional income coming in. And now you trying to falsely equivalate that to it's because we reopened Marlboro is extremely disingenuous.
I'm saying it's because we have too many buildings for the amount of kids we have. Whether it's Marlboro, Lexington, Washington, the middle school, the high school, it doesn't matter. We have half as many kids in the same amount of buildings. Now, that costs money, no matter how you look at it. If Dr. Mike walked in here as a state person, if we brought the state in, what do you think the first thing they would do? What do you think in a fiscal emergency, what's the first thing the state would do?
I don't know. We're not in a fiscal emergency.
We're walking towards one. What is the first thing they do? They close buildings. They consolidate. And again, I have no problem with 3 elementary schools. I grew up in a community with 7 elementary schools. They have 2 elementary schools now because numbers shrink. It's real. It is. And they're not coming back. The idea that somehow we're going to be back up to 4,000 students
I think I remember the president saying
pipe dream. That's delusional. That's delusional based on every single projection of birth rates in Northeast Ohio.
Wow.
And that's I'm done.
I don't want to lose sight of something Dr. Mason said. I do just want to let you know that there are many districts, and hindsight is 2020, but many districts in Ohio that wanted to keep their schools made centers by grade level. So a kindergarten center maybe, and then a 1, 2, 3, and then a 4, 5. So there is some soundness in that. I'm not saying we should do that right now, today, but there is some sound reasoning in that if we are going to keep the space. And I can see, I can understand the points. We would need this levy even if we consolidated into one elementary school, because this is an operating levy. We would still need this levy. But I didn't want to lose sight of what, and Dr. Mason is right. We have looked at birth rates. They're low. We're not expecting to grow back to the amount of kids we used to have. I don't even think Jackson is really growing, and that's kind of the feel in Stark County. So it's tough. It's tough.
Well, as a board, I think what we need to do is set the example, be positive about our situation, make our school the best that we can make at our school district. We want to attract as many people in as we can. And I think the board needs to support the levy if that's the route we have to go. If we can figure out what a reasonable levy would be, the board needs to get fully behind that and support it so that we can continue to offer this district and the community everything that we should be and keep our students in our district. And Dr. Mike, if you can look at programming, and I know that you've got a lot on your plate and you're looking at everything just to make our district as attractive as possible so that we can keep our students here and attract other students in as well. And I appreciate everything you and Patty have done in preparation for this and going forward. I know it's a lot of work trying to sort through everything, and you haven't even been here a full year yet. But it's greatly appreciated, and we appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Are there any further questions on finance and construction? New, revised, deleted board policies. Dr. Mike, did you want to say anything on this? This would be, I believe, the second reading.
Correct. This is the second reading. I don't have anything further. I did not
Okay.
receive any questions from board members.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the second reading and adoption of the following policies? And they're listed on the board agenda, starting with 1422 and going down through 8510. And there are several policies listed.
So move.
Second.
Thank you, Ben. Is there any discussion or questions on any of the policies? Dr. May, please call the roll. You're on mute.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens,
Yes.
approved, 5-0.
Treasurer's agenda, Dr. Patty Main.
Thank you. The first item for your approval tonight is the minutes from February 18th as well as March 4th.
Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's recommendation that the Marlington Local Board of Education approve the minutes of the following meetings, February 18th and March 4th, 2021?
So move. Second.
Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens,
Yes.
approved, 5-0. The next item on the agenda is the board cash reconciliation, as well as the cash fund balances. And the last one is our check report for this month.
Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's recommendation that the Marlington Local Board of Education approve the financial reports and overview of receipts and expenditures for the period ending February 28th, 2021 for the three reports that Patty had just listed?
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Patty, did you want to go over?
There's not much out of the ordinary for this month. As you can see, we are in balance. Our cash funds, again, we have month-to-date receipts as well as year-to-date receipts. And the fund balance there, as well as a variety of checks. As I mentioned, there's really nothing out of the ordinary this month unless somebody has a specific question.
Patty, have we received another statement from Attorney Markling?
We have not.
So that's not since the end of October of 2020. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Patty, please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Abstain.
Mrs. Stevens,
Yes.
approved, 4-1. The next item on the agenda is our revenue revisions as well as our appropriation revisions. As you can see, we have the 4.7 million going in for our lease purchase. And we have it, those are the biggest revisions this month. And we show it as also appropriations for payment. One other item I would like to mention, at a past board meeting, somebody had mentioned that another district was getting a safety grant. We do have our safety grant, and that is under miscellaneous state grants on our revenue, our appropriations. That will show it going out to $10,388.67. Those are the biggest changes.
Is there a motion that the Marlington Local Board of Education approve the revenue and budget revisions as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens,
Yes.
approved, 5-0. The last item on the agenda for treasurer is the approval of the accepting the tax rates. This is just another step that we complete for the county auditor. A couple months ago, we were shown the tax rates, and now we're just approving that.
Is there a motion to approve the treasurer's recommendation for the resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Patty, this is done once a year. Is that correct?
Correct.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens,
Yes.
approved, 5-0.
Executive session. Is there a motion for the Marlington Local School District Board of Education to recess into executive session pursuant to revised code 121.22 G1 and House Bill 197 via a secure virtual conference line for the purposes of employment or for the purposes of discussing employment and or appointment of public employees and specialized details of security arrangements.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens,
Yes.
approved 5-0.
If everyone would please close out of Google Meet and join on the Zoom connection that was sent to you earlier today. Thank you very much. We ended executive session at 8:51, and the personnel section, I'll turn over to Dr. Mike.
Okay, everybody. Under administrative staff, I have recommendation to hire Renee Cayley, curriculum director, 3-year contract from August 1st of 21 to July 31st of 24. And we have to put on there pending verification, et cetera. She is one of our principals, so we have that, but we will verify. And just to highlight to you, we are eliminating the assistant superintendent position and replacing that with curriculum director. So I'm very happily recommending to you Renee Cayley.
Is there a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for Renee Cayley as curriculum director as presented?
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Please call the roll. You're on mute.
Mrs. Gaber,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Approved 5-0.
Okay, under classified. Thank you, everybody, for that one. Under classified, I'd like to ask you to amend the retirement date for Teresa Rohr. We've had this before. Teresa met again with the retirement board and needs to adjust a little bit. That's fine. Teresa's such a great lady for us. And then also Mary Clandros is retiring. She is our library technician at Marlborough. We wish her the best. Classified hires. I'd like to recommend to you Nicole DeAngelis, administrative assistant to the superintendent, pending verification of background. Peggy Baxter is coming on board to fill a custodian vacancy. And also Zach Hale is coming on board to fill a custodian vacancy. And then, let me see here. Let's see, I'm sorry. Oh yeah, we do have 2 classified subs. We're getting used to the new system here. Taryn Johnson and Barbara Ruth.
Is there a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for the classified personnel as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Approved 5-0.
Supplemental staff, we needed to make a correction. I think I had a mistake about the soccer coach, Jacob Sutton. The year should have been 21-22. And then Miles Ford, I'd like to recommend for head boys tennis, and Noah Raybuck for assistant boys tennis. And those are supplemental positions.
Dr. Mike, I have Aubin Boyce listed on mine. Is that also one we're hiring tonight?
Yes, sorry about that.
Okay, and Aubin Boyce swimming aid.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
Got cut off there.
Is there a motion to approve the superintendent's recommendation for the supplemental staff as presented?
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Mrs. Stevens.
Yes.
Approved 5-0.
Announcements, Dr. Mike?
I don't think I have any extra announcements except remember we're on spring break right now and everybody returns to 6. The board office is closed Friday and Monday. Staff gets that off. And then to those who celebrate, of course, a very happy Easter weekend to you, a very blessed weekend. And I think that's all I have for announcements.
Thank you. The next Board of Education meeting is April 18th, 2021 at 7 o'clock. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Gabrick,
Yes.
Mr. Hagan,
Yes.
Mrs. Humphries,
Yes.
Dr. Mason,
Yes.
Ms. Stevens,
Yes.
approved 5-0.
Thank you very much, everyone, and happy Easter to everyone.
Happy
Happy
Easter.
you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.